I woke up one morning, I was feeling sick. Called up the doctor to see me quick. Voice on the phone said with no hesitation, if you've got insurance, you're our patient. I said, it's just a sore throat. I can pay the bill. She said, well, it'll be $95 to look at your tonsils and $150 to establish you as a patient. So I called around to some companies and I said, I'd like to buy some insurance, please. And they said, we've got to examine you first, find out if you're an acceptable risk. We got to make sure you won't actually get sick. You know, health insurance is for healthy people. So they analyzed my blood and my pee, and they scrutinized every inch of me, took the medical history of all my relations back about a dozen generations. Then they said, we gotta know one more thing. Do you have any pre-existing conditions? Just one, I said, but it's terminal. It's called life. So they signed me up and they told me the terms for helping my body to fend off germs with a co-payment here, deductible there, sky-high premium for each month's care. They said, if you have to go to the hospital, don't worry, we'll be right there looking over your doctor's shoulder. Well, I was starting to see where the problem lay and why I was having to pay and pay. I said, this isn't really about my health. It's something to do with increasing your wealth. They said, what country do you think you're living in? Cuba? France? England? Germany? Taiwan? Brazil? Hungary? New Zealand? Australia? Denmark? Norway, Chile, South Korea, Uruguay, Luxembourg, Liechtenstein? Well, the truth is, with expectations like that, you could be living in any industrialized country in the world except for these United States, where there's 47 million of us out here on our own. Yes, healthcare ought to be guaranteed. It's about our lives, not some middleman's greed. And if we all get together and organize, we can have a new system. Get rid of those guys. Yep, we can have universal coverage. Healthcare for people, not for profit. In fact, pretty soon we'll all be feeling so good we'll think we died and went to Canada.
And that was Deborah Van Kleef with the song Talking Healthcare. Greetings and welcome to Bernie 2020. This is an independent podcast on progressive politics, inspired by Bernie Sanders and progressive and radical activism. This podcast is completely independent of any candidate, party, PAC, or political organization. If you want to reach out to me, you can send me a message at bernieus2020@gmail.com, or you can follow on Twitter at bernieus2020. You can find out more at bernie-2020.com. You'll find links to all the back episodes. You'll also find some links to make a donation. You can make a one-time or recurring donation to keep this podcast free and independent. This is another special episode. This is Bernie Sanders Has Issues. And the issue we're going to talk about today is eliminating medical debt. You can find all of Bernie's issues at berniesanders.com/issues. Key points: eliminate all of the $81 billion in past due medical debt held by 79 million Americans, 1 in every 6 Americans. Reform bankruptcy laws to use the existing bankruptcy court system to provide relief for those with burdensome medical debt. Create a secure public credit registry to replace for-profit credit reporting agencies. Details. In the United States of America, the wealthiest country in the history of the world, one illness or disease should not ruin a family's financial life and future. In America today, it is unacceptable that 1 out of every 6 Americans have past due medical bills on their credit report, totaling $81 billion. The largest share of that medical debt is held by 27-year-olds who lose access to their parents' insurance after age 26. Today, 25% of 24 to 55-year-olds throughout the country have outstanding medical debt. A staggering 79 million Americans struggle to pay their medical bills or are paying off medical debt, including more than half of those making less than $40,000 a year. Last year alone, 8 million people were pushed into poverty due to medical expenses. Nearly half of Americans fear a major medical event could lead to their bankruptcy, according to Gallup, and 1 out of every 4 people in America said that sometime in the past year they had skipped medical treatment because of concerns about cost. Right now, medical debt is the leading cause of consumer bankruptcy in America. In fact, 66.5% of all bankruptcies are connected to medical issues, both because of the skyrocketing cost of care and because of a patient's time away from work and the subsequent expenses and lack of income. Studies show that 500,000 people are bankrupted by medical expenses each and every year, and the true number may be far higher. Poor credit caused by illness can condemn families to cycles of further indebtedness. It can destroy credit scores, which in turn can force families to pay more in rent, make it harder to purchase a vehicle, force them to pay outrageous interest rates to payday lenders, and force families to forgo necessary medical care. It is immoral and unconscionable that families across the country are being evicted, having their heat disconnected, or having their already inadequate wages garnished because of crippling medical debt, while the healthcare industry made more than $100 billion in profits last year. When Bernie is in the White House, he will fight to make sure that no one in America goes bankrupt because of medical debt and will eliminate all past due medical debt in this country. Eliminating existing past due medical debt. Medical debt is the leading type of debt reported to credit agencies. More than 46 million Americans have at least one unpaid medical bill that has been sent to a collection agency on their credit report. Many hospitals, including many nonprofit and public hospitals, aggressively sue low-income patients for medical bills incurred through no fault of their own. Some have even filed lawsuits against their own employees to collect unpaid medical bills. Even having health insurance is no protection against medical debt. 1 in 6 patients with insurance incurred a surprise medical bill in 2017. Currently, private equity firms that own physician staffing groups are spending millions to lobby against legislation to end these out-of-network billing practices because surprise billing is essential to their profit model. In America today, hospitals throughout the country are selling uncollected medical debt for pennies on the dollar to collection agencies who aggressively attempt to force patients to pay the full amount due. These debt collectors harass patients at work and at home, deploying unscrupulous tactics even after the statute of limitations on the debt has expired. Forcing additional stress and hardship on someone for the, quote, crime of getting sick is immoral, unconscionable, and un-American. We will eliminate past due medical debt, stop the predatory tactics of debt collectors, and ensure nonprofit hospitals are serving their intended mission. As president, Bernie will eliminate the $81 billion in past due medical debt. Under this plan, the federal government will negotiate and pay off past due medical bills in collections that have been reported to credit agencies. End abusive and harassing debt collection practices. Prohibit the collection of debt beyond the statute of limitations. Significantly limit the contact attempts per week a collector can make to an individual through any mode of communication, regardless of how many bills are in collection. require collectors to ensure information about a debt is fully accurate before attempting to collect. Substantially limit the assets that can be seized and the wages that can be garnished in collection to ensure consumers do not lose their homes, jobs, or primary vehicles and will be able to financially support their families. Instruct the IRS to review the billing and collection practices of the nearly 3,000 nonprofit hospitals to ensure they are in line with the charitable care standards for nonprofit tax status and take action against those who are not. Use bankruptcy courts to process other existing and future medical debt. The so-called Bankruptcy Abuse Prevention and Consumer Protection Act of 2005 was a disastrous piece of legislation that benefited Wall Street and the credit card companies while causing severe economic pain and financial distress for ordinary Americans throughout the country. A study of its impacts found that the bankruptcy bill made it harder for patients to discharge medical debt through bankruptcy after a hospital stay, especially for uninsured patients. And during the debate, then Senator Joe Biden was one of only 3 Democrats to vote against an amendment that would have exempted those with serious medical debt from the draconian means test. The bankruptcy bill reinforced and strengthened a rigged financial system that disproportionately harms African American borrowers and makes debt relief and forgiveness harder to obtain. Not only must we eliminate past due medical debt, we must also reform our corrupt bankruptcy system to make it easier to discharge medical bills put on credit cards and other forms of payment and ensure this debt does not follow patients going forward. As President, Bernie will reform the Bankruptcy Abuse Prevention and Consumer Protection Act of 2005 to use the existing bankruptcy court system to provide relief for those with burdensome medical debt. Eliminate means testing requirements to file for bankruptcy. Allow for the adjudication, including potential discharge of debt, including interest and penalties, stemming from direct payments to providers and insurers for medical expenses. Assuming documentation, this includes medical debt incurred on credit cards or any other consumer debt product. End the onerous and regressive, quote, credit counseling required before filing to discharge medical debt. Include broad automatic stay protections, placing an immediate prohibition on any evictions, utility, heat, electric, etc. interruptions, foreclosure proceedings, wage garnishments, driver's license suspensions, and other actions. Prohibit requiring the disclosure of medical debt discharge on housing, loan, or other applications. Create a public credit registry. Our current lending system relies on 3 major unsecure for-profit credit registries to determine creditworthiness. In 2017, the credit reporting agency Equifax suffered a breach that exposed the personal information of more than 140 million Americans. Instead of material consequences, Equifax's CEO retired with a $90 million payday. Tens of millions of consumers have incorrect information on their credit reports, which can prevent them from receiving home loans, rental apartments, or good jobs. Credit scores also systematically perpetuate gaps in wealth and inequality between white and minority consumers. For millions of Americans, one unforeseen medical emergency or illness could send a family into financial destitution or a spiraling debt trap. We must and we will remove the profit motive from assessing the creditworthiness of American consumers. We will establish a public registry that will end racial biases in credit scores and ensure those with medical debt are not penalized for the, quote, crime of getting sick. As President, Bernie will remove and exclude medical debt from existing credit reports. Create a secure public credit registry to replace for-profit credit reporting agencies. This registry will use a public, transparent algorithm to determine creditworthiness that eliminates racial biases in credit scores Allow Americans to receive credit scores for free. Prohibit medical debt from being included. End the use of credit checks for rental housing, employment, insurance, and other non-lending practices. And that will wrap up this episode of Bernie 2020. Bernie Sanders has issues eliminating medical debt. Once again, if you want to check out back episodes of Bernie 2020, just go to bernie-2020.com. You'll find links there to make a donation and links there to send me a message. In addition, you can watch and listen to me record live on Twitch at twitch.tv/unrelatedthings. Here is the song Dear Number 103-692-405-3887 by Roy Zimmerman. Thanks for listening.
The cost of health care in America is rising, and I don't know how much higher it can go. But there's a prescription to make it all better, laid out in this letter from my HMO. Dear Number 103-692-405-3887. Have you considered suicide? It's a healthcare plan you probably haven't tried. Enclosed, please find a tab of cyanide for your perusal. You're getting to an age where your potential need for medical attention, even intervention, isn't hypothetical. So do it quick and solve this nation's healthcare crisis by not getting sick. Die now, bye-bye now, before you get one hemorrhoid older. So long, you're no longer a cost-effective policy holder. Won't you help us file your folder in the shredder by being just a little bit deader? Dear Number 103-692-405-3887. Before you take another breath, consider the advantages of death. We've enclosed a lethal dose of crystal meth for your convenience. And when you're dead and buried, you'll be covered, you can quote us. And if you've killed yourself already, disregard this notice. So, pretty please, remember, don't jerk, just squeeze, and make it easier to write these policies for insurees who never sneeze, contract disease, get injuries, have tricky knees, can't stomach cheese, or get some wheezy little cough. It's up to you. 103-692, knock yourself off. Signed your kindly HMO.